found my journal and read about my detailed one-night stands and decided to take brutal revenge. The quiet hum of the city outside my apartment provided a constant background noise that I had grown accustomed to over the years. Nestled in the heart of this urban jungle, my life thrived on the energy and chaos around me. I was a woman of many faces, a dedicated professional by day and an untamed spirit by night. My journal was my sanctuary, a repository of my deepest secrets, desires, and regrets. It was within these pages that I chronicled my numerous one-night stands with meticulous detail, a ritual that helped me process my actions and emotions. Little did I know my private sanctuary would become the catalyst for a chain of events that would turn my life upside down. My name is Stephanie, female 28. I am married to David, male 28. Well, David and I got married right after we graduated from college 4 years ago. I can say he is my high school lover, even though we were not studying in the same high school. Then we studied at the same college. We fell in love in a most unexpected way. I mean, he was in IT, the most wanted guy at school, and I was just an ordinary girl who grew up in a not-so-good background. I won't say I am proud of my background and where I am coming from, but it has taught me a lot about who I am and about life. You know, when a person with a bad background as mine says, "I have tasted poverty and did some things I'm not proud of, but I did them to survive, and I have also tasted good life with so much happiness and love." So do not think just because I am now living the life I had always wanted to live, you can easily break me and take me back to where I was. I am now a qualified urologic. I deal with male issues mostly while I'm also running a nonprofit organization for people with a background like mine. My husband and I have beautiful twins who are super naughty but wouldn't trade them for anything. I got them in my first year in college. It was a bit challenging having to focus on your studies while pregnant, especially with twins. But my husband was there throughout the whole pregnancy journey. My twins are now 9 years old and they are the most precious gift that God has ever given me. Well, once upon a time when I was in 6th grade, my aunt took me to the brothel that she once owned. I couldn't believe that she would take me to that disgusting place and actually tell me that if I still wanted to live in her house, I would have to meet her halfway and hustle. I first didn't understand what she was talking about. I mean, I was only 13 years. In my mind, I was asking myself, why would Auntie Jade introduce me to that filthy place? I mean, I would have tried other hustling options like selling sweets at school or something, but she wanted me to work at her brothel. I had no choice but to take her offer because she even threatened to kick me out of the house and deprive me food. She told me that as a woman I had to hustle so I would not sleep on an empty stomach. I missed my mother every day during my first time in the brothel. My aunt introduced me to some old men, saying that they were my clients. Mind you, that time I didn't even know what the word client meant. So my aunt wanted me to do the dance for those old men and give them a show. Time passed. When I was 17, I'd gotten used to the hustling and I had become a sex worker. I would get clients who needed sexual desires. There were also regulars that would only need my service. I was grateful at the fact that my aunt allowed me to go to school because that was not the life I had planned to have. So I made sure to work my butt off at school so I would at least get a scholarship to go to college so I would leave the hellhole. So one day David, my husband or my ex-husband, was visiting his grandmother in the neighborhood. That was when I actually met him. Well, more like he had moved to live with his grandmother because I found out about 2 days later that he was going to study at Tupelo High School when my aunt told me that I should play far from him. My aunt had some issues with affording people, I think, because she would always find a way or something bad to say about them. David and I became friends for a year in high school, despite my aunt's disapproval. I didn't tell David about my hustling side. I knew I had to tell him, but I didn't know how to. So I vowed to keep it to myself for as long as I live. I was too ashamed to even share what had been going on at home because I was scared of being judged, and I had thoughts that maybe he would no longer want to be my boyfriend because of my background. My aunt's brothel used to have cameras for safety purposes, so everything we did, even every client we satisfied, we got recorded just in case they wanted to take advantage of us. When I was accepted at William Carey University College of Osteopathic Medicine, I was ecstatic. One, I was glad that I would finally get a chance to live at my aunt's house and chase my goals. Even though my aunt didn't want me to go, saying who would look after the business and take care of his clients if I was not there. That time I knew that if I didn't stand up for myself and my aunt's abusive behavior, I would never escape and I needed to chase my dreams. Little did I know that in my first year in college I would get pregnant and my scholarship was taken away. That was the most heartbreaking episode that I had gone through. Luckily, the peanuts that my aunt would give me after I had finished with my job. I had managed to save them even though it was not going to be enough for the whole 4 years of study. During that time, I had to focus at school while working as a waitress in one of the nearby restaurants. David was there with me during the whole pregnancy journey, and I appreciated his support and love. Later on in my pregnancy, I had moved in with David. Our relationship had its own fair share of ups and downs, but we managed to get through every circumstance. It was a bit challenging having to take care of the children while focusing at work. I would sometimes slack on something until David suggested that we get a nanny for our kids because we were both in college, so we had to focus. A few years later, we got married during summer holidays. Before we got married, I think a few months before David and I got married, I got a call from my aunt's friend and neighbor, Auntie Haley, telling me that I had to come to my aunt's house. She had passed on. I know that I should have felt some kind of hurt or at least cry because she had taken me into her home and groomed me, even though it wasn't a very pleasant grooming. But I felt nothing. I wasn't happy nor sad. Is that even normal? So I told David what Aunt Haley had told me, and to my surprise, he already knew. His grandmother had told him. So we decided to go down to Tupelo for my aunt's burial ceremony. So time passed, I had given birth, my relationship with David changed to a point that we would always argue over small things. I was very much insecure because I felt like I was no longer beautiful in his eyes because he was always out and about. I even suspected that he was cheating on me because he was longer there for me or the kids. Okay, maybe the twins would get his attention from time to time, but he was no longer spending time with me. All he cared about were our twins. We were no longer engaging in intimacy. It was like he found me no longer attractive. After like a year of tolerating David's behavior and treatment, I decided to stop hipping and feeling sorry for myself and picked myself up. Yes, I had children, but that didn't mean I should look like a granny in nightwear all the damn time and drowning myself in sorrows, drinking tea even when the sun is blazing hot. Yes, what David was doing was depressing me to the core, but I knew that the more I stayed inside the house like a sick person, the more David would be pushed away. I went back to work and started living my life to the fullest. I even started noting everything that I go through or my future plans in a journal. My journey into the world of casual encounters began after a painful and depressing experience that David had put me through. Heartbroken and disillusioned, I sought solace in the fleeting connections with strangers. Each encounter was a temporary escape, a way to fill the void and numb the pain. My journal became my confidant, a silent witness to my nights of passion and mornings of solitude. I detailed every aspect, from the intoxicating thrill of the chase to the bitter taste of regret that often followed. In my professional life, I was known for my sharp intellect and unwavering determination. I had carved out a successful career in marketing, working for a prestigious firm that demanded nothing short of excellence. My colleagues admired my work ethic and ambition, unaware of the double life I led outside the office. It was a delicate balance, one that I managed with precision and care. Enter James, a colleague who had recently joined our team. He was charming, intelligent, and quickly became a close friend. We bonded over late-night brainstorming sessions and shared a mutual respect for each other's talents. I valued his friendship and trusted him implicitly, never suspecting that he would become the architect of my downfall. I had stayed at home for too long and I had started to get bored, so I decided to just go out, have some fun. I'm still young and I couldn't be living like I was 95 or I was about to retire. I knew that I had to find my groove back. Yes, I was still married and I was not about to forget that anytime. The only thing that I had needed was having fun and letting loose. So I decided to visit one of the clubs that was not far from home but far from home. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say. When I got into the club, I was met by the soothing and calming vibe. The music was playing so nice and it was exactly what I had needed. I needed to be in a free and calming environment. So I stayed there while enjoying my wine plus the music. My friends had advised me to go back to my house to my husband, but I was just not ready. I had told myself that until he decides to change, then I would go back well. I would consider going back. As I was still enjoying my solo date or my alone time, I swayed to the music, and a handsome stranger caught my eye from across the room. His smile was charming, his eyes sparkling with mischief. Before I knew it, he was by my side, offering to buy me a drink when he got closer. I then realized that it was James, my colleague. I was greeted by this fine guy. I had never noticed that he was so fine and handsome. This guy was just so yummy to a point that I pictured myself having some intimate moments with him. He was light caramel in complexion, with a very charming smile. I greeted him back and he asked if the seat that was next to me was taken. He then joined me. I hesitated for a moment, my wedding ring feeling heavy on my finger, but the allure of escape was too strong to resist. I accepted the drink and found myself laughing and dancing with the stranger who was my colleague, his name lost in the blur of flashing lights and pulsating beats. We talked a lot. He was actually a very fun guy and he was really smart. He introduced himself for the second time as James Nate, male, 32. He was just so perfect, I had desired him so bad. As he was still speaking, I couldn't believe it when I got to the ladies' room, restroom or toilet. I actually didn't want to pee, but the Jerome guy really made me wet. The guy made me ejaculate while I was talking to him. Well, more like he was the one doing the talking because I was busy drooling over him and had some nasty thoughts of him. Have you ever craved for a stranger to a point that I had already pictured myself being held by his broad and fit arms? You would see that he was a gym person, and it made him look so gorgeous. So the guy and I talked throughout the night. I had even forgotten to check the time, and I didn't even find a chance to call Nick and tell him where I was. I was enjoying Jerome's company. We had stayed like that until he told me that he was calling it a night. Mind you, that time I was kind of tipsy and craved for S** so much. I told him that I won't be able to drive at that time, plus it was already late for me to drive back home. I didn't even know that my husband was going to be home sooner than expected. So the guy suggested that I go with him to his apartment. The pounding bass reverberated through the crowded nightclub, drowning out any coherent thought in my mind. As the night wore on and the drinks kept flowing, my inhibitions melted away. I found myself drawn to the stranger's charisma, his touch sending shivers down my spine. In a haze of desire and alcohol, we left the club together, stumbling into the cool night air. What followed was a blur of passion and reckless abandon, the weight of my marriage momentarily forgotten in the heat of the moment. When the sun rose the next morning, I found myself alone in a strange bed, the reality of my actions crashing down on me like a tidal wave. I spent a night with a charming guy I met at a club, and it seemed harmless at the time. When we got into his apartment, the clothes were already flying. It was like we were both craving for each other. Things were happening so fast, and I would say that I was enjoying every moment that was happening. The guy explored me, He made me feel like I was on a ride to Cloud 9. He was touching me in all the right places, and it was so magical. Everything I did with James was just what I had been longing for. As much as it was a one-night stand, but I enjoyed every moment of it besides the fact that we did it in a restroom. So when I got home, I jotted down everything. I then couldn't stop thinking about James, even at work. It was somehow awkward for me while he was acting like nothing had happened. He was just his professional self while I was dying to have him again. I know it was a wicked and witchy move, but my husband was no longer doing it like I had wanted him to. It was a typical Friday evening when the events that would shatter my world began to unfold. After a long week at work, I asked David to get back early at work, because there was something that I needed to discuss with him. We had done this several times before, which was somehow a great progress for us, using these moments to unwind and discuss our aspirations. That night, however, something felt different. David seemed more inquisitive, his questions probing deeper into my personal life. I had never shared anything about my past life with him, and I was not willing to, but everything from my past was written in the journal. I dismissed it as harmless curiosity, unaware that he had a hidden agenda. As the night progressed, I excused myself to the restroom, leaving David alone in my living room. It was during this brief moment of absence that he discovered my journal. I had carelessly left it on the coffee table, the leather-bound cover and gold-embossed initials catching his eye. Driven by an insatiable curiosity, David picked it up and began to read. The initial shock of finding such intimate details about my life was overwhelming for him. He felt a mix of betrayal and disgust as he read through the explicit entries. Each page unveiled a new layer of my secret life, a side of me that he had never seen before. The more he read, the more his emotions spiraled out of control. He felt deceived, as if the person he thought he knew was a mere illusion. David's mind raced as he formulated a plan to exact revenge. His initial reaction was to confront me immediately, but he quickly realized that such an approach would not satisfy his need for retribution. Instead, he decided to play a long game, one that would slowly dismantle my life piece by piece. The first phase of his plan involved subtle psychological torment. He began to drop hints that he knew more about me than he let on, making cryptic comments that left me feeling uneasy. At work, he subtly undermined my efforts, taking credit for my ideas and sowing seeds of doubt among our colleagues. His charm and charisma made it easy for him to manipulate those around him, turning them against me without their knowledge. As the weeks turned into months, David's actions became more brazen. He hacked into my social media accounts, posting embarrassing and incriminating messages that tarnished my reputation. Friends and acquaintances began to distance themselves, leaving me isolated and vulnerable. He sent anonymous letters to my family, revealing details from my journal that left them shocked and ashamed. The psychological torment took a toll on my mental health. I became paranoid, constantly looking over my shoulder and second-guessing everyone around me. My work performance suffered, and my once promising career began to falter. The stress and anxiety were overwhelming, leaving me a shell of the person I once was. The impact of David's revenge was devastating. I struggled to maintain my sanity as my world crumbled around me. The isolation and fear were suffocating, and I found myself on the brink of a breakdown. It was during one of these moments of despair that I began to piece together the puzzle. The timing of the attacks, the specific details revealed, all pointed to James. Realizing that he was the mastermind behind my suffering, I confronted him. The confrontation was intense, filled with anger, hurt, and betrayal. David did not deny his actions. Instead, he reveled in my pain, his eyes gleaming with a twisted sense of satisfaction. He revealed the full extent of his plans, detailing how he had meticulously orchestrated each act of vengeance. I was left reeling. The realization that someone I had trusted so deeply could harbor such malice was a bitter pill to swallow. I knew that I had to take action to reclaim my life, but the path ahead seemed daunting and fraught with challenges. The climax of this saga came one fateful night when James's plan reached its zenith. He had planned an elaborate scheme to publicly humiliate me at a company event. He had prepared a video compilation of my journal entries, pairing them with incriminating photos and messages he had gathered over the months. The plan was to play the video during the event, ensuring maximum exposure and humiliation. Unbeknownst to David, I had been preparing my own counterstrike. With the help of a few trusted friends and a skilled IT expert, I managed to gather evidence of his hacking activities and other illegal actions. Armed with this information, I decided to turn the tables on him. The night of the event, I took the stage just as David was about to execute his plan. With a calm yet determined demeanor, I addressed the audience, revealing the truth about David's actions. I presented the evidence I had gathered, exposing his deceit and malice. The shock and disbelief on his face were palpable as he realized that his plan had backfired. The audience was stunned into silence, the weight of the revelations hanging heavily in the air. David's reputation was shattered, and he was swiftly escorted out of the event by security. The sense of vindication I felt was overwhelming, but the damage had already been done. My life was forever changed, and I knew that the road to recovery would be long and arduous. In the aftermath of the confrontation, I took steps to rebuild my life. I sought therapy to help me process the trauma and regain my sense of self. I reconnected with my family and friends, seeking their support and understanding. My career slowly began to recover, and I found solace in the knowledge that I had overcome the darkness that had once consumed me. The experience taught me valuable lessons about trust, privacy, and the destructive power of revenge. I realized the importance of safeguarding my personal life and being more discerning about who I allowed into my inner circle. The scars from this ordeal would always be a part of me, but they also served as a reminder of my resilience and strength. As I closed the final page of my journal, I felt a sense of closure. The chapters of my past were now behind me, and I was ready to embrace a new beginning. With a renewed sense of purpose, I looked forward to the future, determined to live my life on my own terms and never allow anyone to hold such power over me again. In the end, David's brutal revenge had failed to break me. Instead, it had forged a stronger, more resilient version of myself. And for that, I was grateful. The darkness had passed, and I was ready to step into the light once more with a heart that was no longer burdened by secrets and a spirit that was free to soar. It was a wake-up call that shook me to my core. I never thought that one night of recklessness could lead to such devastating consequences. Now I'm left to pick up the pieces of a shattered relationship and a broken family. It's a painful lesson learned the hard way. So think twice before making impulsive decisions that could change your life forever. I really have no comeback on this. Please help to be able to move on and be able to pick up the pieces. I regret everything that I did to David, and if I could turn back the hands of time, I would have done things differently. I don't know what to do. I feel lost. I'm lost. Please tell me how to deal with all of this. I really need some advice.